I've seen more and more level design blockout videos pass me by on LinkedIn and other platforms with this same looking character and similar mechanics like climbing, combat mechanics, looting, and a lot more. Now, that looked very interesting to me, because creating your own gameplay mechanics is a lot of work and probably not worth the time investment for each level blockout you want to make. So I figured I would investigate this Unreal Engine project to see how useful it can be for my own personal level design projects as well as yours, and share my findings with you in this video. This adventure game Locomotion system is a project by Jakub W, whose videos on the project you can find on his YouTube channel. It looks incredibly extensive, and like it would allow for some very playable level and quest blockouts without too much extra implementation effort required. Going over to his Patreon, it appears to gain access to the project files you need to become a Patreon member first, which costs $12 a month, meaning they are not freely available, but it doesn't seem too expensive either, and when you cancel this subscription, you'll still have access to all your downloaded project files. I'll go ahead and sign up so we can find out whether spending the money on this would be worth it for you as well. Looking at the projects available on the Patreon, it's mentioned that not all animations are included in the project. The needed animations are listed here, and if you'd want to pick up those animation packs from the Epic Games Store, they seem to be rather expensive, which is a bit of a bummer. So let's first test the project without those animations, as everything should still work, with maybe some of the character mechanics looking a bit weird without the animations implemented. Getting access to the project files is as easy as downloading, extracting, and opening it up in a matching version of Unreal Engine. The project opens up in a big gym level, with lots of test setups to see what the project has to offer. Playing in Editor, the character moves in a pretty fluid way. There are hardly any UI elements though, so it's a bit of trial and error to figure out all the controls and character abilities. The project features some carryable objects like this barrel, which is super handy for some quest objectives or puzzle design, like placing an object on a button to hold it down. And it's very useful that the project has a dynamic input button prompt, so you and your players know that they can interact with things. We also have a zipline blueprint that we can drag into our level, position it where we want, and set the location of the endpoint. Though it would be handy to have a draggable widget for this, the system is easy enough to use. You can use a zipline simply by jumping into it, though there doesn't seem to be functionality for jumping off the zipline while traversing it, which basically makes it a one-way travel point. Speaking of traversal options, there's also a fairly intricate rope swinging system with a grapple hook item that attaches to hook points in range, and using physics allows you to swing back and forth on the rope, and climbing up and down while attached. Adding it to your level is as simple as dragging in and positioning the hook point blueprint. I also found a carryable backpack that's needed to carry specific items. Testing the starting pistol shows that there's an ammo system, with clips being consumed on reload and bullets when firing. Aim down sight is cool to have, and these target practice dummies are a nice touch as well. But looking at the blueprints, there are a pistol, rifle, and ammo blueprint that are ready to simply be dragged into your level. And looking at the details panel, each blueprint has a little drop-down menu that allows you to choose between various different pistol, rifle, and ammo types, and allows you to easily set how much ammo the weapon starts with. And there's even a bow and arrow with arrows that can be picked up and added to your inventory, which is excellent if we want our player to have some stealthy range options or solve puzzles through firing arrows. The character also comes equipped with a flashlight, which is fantastic news if you want to create something like spooky cave or dungeon exploration sections. We also have a handy placeable character spawn blueprint, and in its details panel we can toggle some visual customization options. But more importantly, things like which weapons to start with, if any, which is really useful to cater our loadout to the intended experience, and to start the player off without any weapons or ammo if we want them to be vulnerable or facilitate progression through finding items throughout our level. The dynamic ledge climbing system looks fantastic and is really versatile in how we can set up different climbing routes. The ledge climbing system seems to dynamically detect which ledges are climbable, meaning we can use default cubes or any kind of geometry and make it climbable. which is really easy to use, and we can make great use of it in our level blockouts. I noticed some wider ledges allow the player to stand up on them and sidle along the wall. This requires a specific volume to be added to set the area where the player can sidle, but luckily that isn't too difficult to set up. I also realized that our character will climb up immediately when climbing onto a flat surface, but when placing a separate ledge along the edge, we can force the character to ledge hang first, which is useful if you want to make a setup where you can, for example, bypass some guards this way. In addition to ledge climbing, there's also a free wall climbing system. And after a bit of investigation, I discovered that it's dependent on mesh's collision settings, meaning that it's possible to set up any static mesh we'd like to be climbable, which gives us a lot of freedom in setting up our blockout climbing sections in any way that we'd like. The project also features a lootable item system, with pickup animations and a couple of preset items, including bandages that you can use to restore health. They're all blueprints that can just be dragged and dropped into your level. To make your looting experience more intricate, there are some cupboards and chest blueprints that you can drag into your level that have nifty opening animations, and you can use to hide some lootable items in. The project also comes with a cover system, which is handy if your project is in that style of gameplay. I also found this really cool node inspection blueprint that we can just drag into our level, and it works right out of the box, which we can use to add things like puzzle clues or narrative context to our blockouts. From a quick look, I couldn't find any inbuilt way to customize what the node says. Though, looking at the blueprint, it would be fairly easy with some basic Unreal Engine knowledge to import a custom texture and swap out the material for the node to make it display whatever we want. The project also allows us to spawn a companion AI that will follow us wherever we go as long as it's within its reach, including making use of the climbing system, and can help us get past bespoke obstacles. But for the AI companion to know where to go, we do need to build navigation and generate things like navlinks between jumpable spaces. And navigation for ledge climbing as well, which seems like a bit of a hassle, unless there's an easier way to generate those, which I haven't figured out just yet. This type of stuff can be a bit daunting and difficult to figure out for those that are quite new to Unreal Engine. Though I did find some listed documentation on the project that explains how to use many of the systems and get them working in your project, which does help quite a bit, but doesn't cover all the bases for those that are very new to Unreal Engine and don't know yet what to look for. Now, for the last of the bigger topics in this project, I played in Editor for a bit to test out the AI and combat systems, which seems to all work fairly smoothly. But how easy is it to set up? To spawn enemies, there's a simple spawn blueprint in which we can reference multiple spawn points that we place in our level to randomize or distribute which enemies spawn where. And from the individual spawn points details panel, we can easily select which enemy we would like to spawn here, which weapons they start with, and link a spline path for them to follow. And we can have them spawn automatically on begin play, or spawn the enemies at the desired spawn points by hooking them up in our level blueprint. We can lay out custom splines with path track actors for the enemy AI to patrol along, and define wait times per point for the AI to stop on that spot for X amount of seconds before continuing their patrol, which is critically important if we want to set up specific patrol timings to facilitate stealthy gameplay. So far, that's already so much interesting stuff in this project, but I keep coming across other things that I'm not going to spend more time diving into right now. But here's some very brief mentions of some of the other things I stumbled across in the project. Beams for swinging. A scalable ladder system. Binoculars. A workbench to modify your weapons. A dynamic sliding system. Interactable objects like levers, valves, and one-way gates. And even a drivable car.
Wow.
After investigating the project for a while to see how it's set up, now it's time for the big test. Let's see if I can set up a new functional level from scratch that features the most important mechanics in the project, and how long that will take me. With a bit of familiarity with how the default stuff in Unreal Engine works, most of it wasn't too hard to figure out. There were a couple of small hiccups, like realizing I needed to set the game mode override and auto-possess in world settings to get the gameplay working. And reading documentation and some trial and error to figure out things like the water and swimming system. But all in all, after I had already spent a couple of hours messing around in the project and investigating most of the systems, my very first basic level blockout setup took a bit under an hour to block out and get all the systems working, which doesn't seem too bad for a first trial run. And now that I've had some time to test setting up many of the mechanics of Jakub W's adventure game Locomotion system, I have to say that I'm overall very positive and excited about this project. There's just so much useful and interesting stuff in it that I can use pretty much out of the box, that I'm for sure planning to use this project for personal level design projects in the future, and I'll most likely use it for some future YouTube videos as well. That being said, for those that are completely or even quite new to Unreal Engine, I don't expect you to be able to figure out how to use many of the mechanics in the project and set up your own playable level with it. No real advanced knowledge is needed to make some simple level blockouts with this, but at least some understanding of elements like AI paths, splines, blueprint components, blueprint scripting, and hooking things up to your level blueprint are required to get the most out of this project. For those that find this a bit daunting, but would still like to try out this project, let me know in the comment sections down below if it would be appreciated for me to make a tutorial video in the future for this project specifically, focusing purely on how to set up your own functional level blockouts and skipping past the scary and complicated stuff that we don't really need to know if we're just trying to block out a fun playable level. To all of you, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.